Hi there and welcome to Alexei bike ride number 9, and these were called lockdown bike ride, but now lockdown is kind of easing. I think in future we may call it cyclogeography. If you know anything about cyclogeography, of course it is the discovery of the city through aimless wandering, and so this is the same but on a bike. Now you may notice that we are not anywhere, well if you live in Milton Keynes it'll be familiar to you, but otherwise it won't. We've come out of London for our first out of London expedition. I thought where better to come to than Milton Keynes. I will explain my connection to Milton Keynes as I ride, and you know, for those of you who don't know, I'll tell you what Milton Keynes is and everything. It's we're at the station. We've got the train here to what I like to call Milton Keynes Central. I kind of imagine it as a kind of Dutch railway station. There is there's a network of bike routes called the Red Routes. I'm not exactly sure where they are. I left me a bit of paper at home. Anyway, so but all this will be explained and much more as we set off Alexei Sayle's bike ride, Cyclogeography, through the we're in Buckinghamshire, possible Bucking. Oh yeah, I think the largest city in Buckinghamshire, which is Milton Keynes. Woohoo! So this is the this is the station piazza of Milton Keynes. Just giving you a little look at that. It's on the West Coast main line, and Milton Keynes was built as a single entity, as a modern city in the 1960s. But whereas garden cities before had been a kind of William Morrissey, you know, like Letchworth or somewhere. Welwyn Garden City, kind of cottages and gardens. The designers of Milton Keynes resolved to make it entirely a modernist city. An example perhaps in France is Le Havre, which of course was a result of bombing rather than a redevelopment, but nevertheless it is entire. Now at one point when I first used to come to Milton Keynes in the, I guess it was the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, it was entirely in a single modernist style. Since then it's, you can see like those lampposts and stuff are from the original Milton Keynes, and these roadways. And also of course it was linked by these bike lanes. The station itself is a good way out of town for some inexplicable reason. There's also of course a network. It's built on a grid. No cycle. Oh, there's the fucking hell. It says no cycling on footway, but then there's a very high curve. It's built on a kind of a grid system of roads and roundabouts. A lot of the buildings have been kind of refaced or surprisingly steep, so it doesn't, although it's sort of low rise, it doesn't maintain a single architectural style, which is a pity really when you saw it in all its modernist glory. It was interesting. Ample car parking, as you can see, very much built around the idea of the car. Car was king. Now the reason I was familiar with it is that for a while Just dropped my sunglasses. Yeah, there's a rare moment of excitement there. See Talal on his girlfriend's bike. Look at how this is steep. Yeah. I thought it was all flat. Yeah. The fucking pedal. I know. Oh, I'm already tiring of this idea. Why don't we stay in London? Yeah, so the reason I think when you first get a few bob, you kind of go insane. And Tracy Thorne has got a bit in her book from Everything But the Girl. She had their first hit record. They bought a country house. I think they went to it once. She tore up all the flowers in the garden and she never went back, and they sold it. I'm not slugging letters. I'm not quite fucking hell. This is not cycle friendly. What the? Probably if I had a map or an app or something, I would be doing better here. So we had a load of friends that lived in the sort of Northamptonshire, Oxfordshire area, and so we bought a house in a village called Milton Keynes in Northamptonshire, and it's quite near Milton Keynes. You're backing into quite near Milton Keynes, and so we used to. I was sort of fascinated by Milton Keynes as well. I was really taken with the idea of this kind of modernist city. So we would come. There wasn't much here. There was a cinema complex called The Point, and I seem to remember the only restaurant was a wine bar called Jemima Puddle Ducks, which was had this sort of brown tiles coating it, as it were, and probably served bœuf bourguignon. Anyway, after we tired of that, I sold the house to my best friend Harry, and he lived there until he died. But what we used to do was I would get the train or drive from London, get the train usually, and we would meet in Milton Keynes and have an all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet of remarkably mediocre quality. This is supposed to be like cycle friendly. It's really shit. It's marked as a cycle route, so I guess. Also, last time I was here, I have to say that a lot of these bridges had homeless people in them. I think we're sort of getting towards the centre, maybe. But fucking hell, these I guess they've got an electric bike then, but these fucking slopes are really shit. And surprisingly shit, really. And I thought somehow they were bashed. I mean, it would be better if I'd done some research, but I thought there'd be a more self-evident kind of pathway system, really. I seem to be mostly cycling along pavements and through car parks. So wherever the if this is the central bit, it's so-called Midsummer Boulevard. And one of the things about it is that on Midsummer's Day the sunlight shines directly down the length of the boulevard, and then it illuminates a spot where the Ark of the Covenant is buried, and then they open it and burns everybody's faces. People walking in the bike lane, but I won't. It's like being on the fucking mountain stage of the bloody Tour de France. This. It's also, I thought it would be like separate. I mean, I might be on the I mean, it's marked out as a bike lane, but of course I thought it'd be entirely separate. But it crosses traffic flow quite frequently. So it's shit so far, but some of that might be my fault. I thought I'd be cruising through these kind of completely flat cycle routes, and talking to you about modernist architecture. It's also raining a bit. This looks a bit more leafy, doesn't it? All right, this is more what I imagined. Where's Talal? Have I lost him? No, there he is. So yeah, I used to get the train, and then either Harry would meet me at the station, or my memory of we haven't done it for a few years. Obviously, since he died and stuff. But I remember, I mean, a lot of this, the cobblestones that you can see, and the lighting, the globe lighting there, is all original from the original, you know, when it was built in the 70s. Right, this path's going somewhere. Let's see where it leads us. Oh, a bridge. Another steep slope. Crossing a road, big road. Also, while there's not much there's a sign here, so we will choose a route. So if we go left, we do CMK West and Wolverton, which is one of the towns that one of the little villages that form the original Milton Keynes. Or if we go right, it's Coachway. Oak Ridge Park is 2 miles, and we can go Neath Hill, Campbell Park, Linford Wood and Downs Barn. So let's go right, I think, and see where that takes us. There are somewhere villages and stuff incorporated with lovely little pubs and what have you. Obviously I haven't located any of those yet. But still, it's, you know, enjoy the rain starting to Linford Woods off to the left, we'll ignore that, and somebody sprayed over the other places, but sort of this looks like, the housing looks like you know, contemporary, like original Milton Keynes housing. Is that a cat ahead? That's a nice sight, a Milton Keynes cat. Maybe we'll stop and say, puss, puss, puss. Looks like it was built you know, they were part of the original development. You see this, I mean, this part of the Redway, but I mean, it crosses a fucking road. I don't know. Willen Lane, Kingston, Newport Pagnell. They used to make, or City Centre the other way. Newport Pagnell, where they used to make Aston Martins. This looks a bit like just the barrio, doesn't it? It looks a bit like the working class bit, really. I'll be curious, anybody lives here, I'd be interested to know what you think, or really where I am. I thought I'd have more to say. I did, remember I did benefit, I used to have this line, I've performed in the Milton Keynes Bowl before somebody threw up in it. And I did perform in the Milton Keynes Bowl. I did a benefit for Amnesty International years ago. But I remember one of the things they do in benefit, they brought a bloke who'd been tortured, I think in Morocco, in a wheelchair, and they brought him on. I think some of the crowd threw cans at him. He wasn't that bothered really, but you know, often with those benefits, they feel they have to. You know, I just think, do make it a gig. You know, make it. Don't try and make it a political meeting. There's a lot of these abandoned scooters. They're obviously trialling. This is like, this is really, this is quite dystopian, really. I assume we don't need to be worried, but it's like coming to this blank series of steps and another steep hill, and quite an empty car, an empty kids' playground. Like, I'll go around to the left just because it's not up a hill. An abandoned child's playground, like something out of Terminator 2. I did actually, though, I'll tell you, I remember, I think it was on OTT, it was on my first TV. People are very aware, I don't know if it's the same way now. People are very touchy about where they lived. I think I said something on the telly, maybe, about Milton Keynes. And it's the first time I got death threats. And Jeff's Kebabs, or there's a pub here, this pub looks, the Blacksmith Arms. That looks special, doesn't it? I don't think is it open? It's hard to tell. Kid on a bike. The Blacksmith Arms. That does look like something. Wow, that's somebody's idea of a pub in the 1970s. Fucking hell. Got cars in the car park. Maybe it is. I think we're. I would have followed that kid. I think we're in the. Some people with tiny dogs. It's raining quite heavily now, so. Ooh. I could do it sort of finding the cycle track again. Very leafy. You've got to give it. Oh, there's somebody on the scooter there. fire burning over there. Somebody set fire to their own house, perhaps out of despair. Or enjoyment, out of a kind of a joie de vivre. So it's much easier, you know, because if you wanted to issue death threats, of course, in the early 80s, you had to put some work in. You had to write a death threat and find who to send it to, and buy a stamp. You don't have to do any of that anymore, thanks to the internet. So, you know, Downs Barnes School we are. That kid's probably got his own podcast as well, his own cycling podcast. Slightly more sprawny housing to the left, right, I mean. I also wanted to, while there's a shop, a Budgeons. Don't bother indicating in Milton Keynes. In the last, I think it was the last bike ride, I talked about Cleopatra's Needle, and this just run out. Whatever the hell this was, it's kind of stopped. I wonder whether it's like, you know, like what were they called? Wreckers, you know. They would put up people who lived in coastal villages. They would put up fake lighthouses in the 17th, 16th century and lure ships onto the rocks, and then they would murder the crew and steal, you know, the contents of the ship. Maybe people in Milton Keynes erect false bike lanes and lure bourgeois middle-class blogging cyclists onto them, murder them, and then steal their iPads, notebooks. So I'm going down here just because it's down here, but I feel like it's gonna run out really. So this is the Highclere care home. Presumably you could end your days here, the spot. And I think this will be where we end the first part of our Milton Keynes bike ride, which I frankly think is quite unsatisfactory. All right.